Ignore the Amber Alerts you receive at 4 a.m. I now know why I sacrificed my son. I've always ignored these emergency notifications in the past, but something was different about this one though. My phone buzzed, and I took an extra second to read what it had to say. Amber Alert, child abduction. Bolo for 6-year-old blonde male in back of a 2012 silver Chevy Impala. For a second, it stunned me. That sounded just like my car. In fact, the description sounded like. Then I looked up in the rearview mirror to smile at Wes, my 6-year-old. Wes was singing the song to a Drake album and playing with Nerf guns. This had to be some kind of mistake, I thought. So I tossed the phone on the passenger side of the car and pulled out toward the interstate. A few minutes later, the phone buzzed again, and I felt compelled to look. There was an update with a license plate number, my license plate number. Immediately, my hands felt clammy, and I didn't know what to do. I looked in the back of the car again and tried to retrace my steps. I had just picked Wes up early from kindergarten so we could grab some Baskin-Robbins. I signed him out, and we talked about Transformers on the way out of the building. He was wearing a mask, of course, when he came out, and that got me to second-guess myself. Had the teacher given me the wrong kid? No, I know what my son looks like, I thought as I looked at the rear view again. He didn't seem to have a care in the world. So why was this alert popping up? I think I drove another good 2 minutes before I made it to the next rest stop and decided to call someone. Maybe I had forgotten to sign him out. Maybe the school had decided to make the call when they thought he was missing. Surely this was all a big misunderstanding. I made a call to the school to speak with the principal. Ms. Shepard here, the voice said distractedly. This is Charles Bowman. I just wanted to double check with you about the sign-out sheet for Wes, I said nervously as I looked around the rest stop. I didn't know who to ask for help, but I was feeling panicked. I figured if a cop came by, I could square the whole thing up, let them talk to the school. This could be resolved, I kept telling myself. There was a short pause as the teacher looked up the information, and then the principal came back on the line. I'm sorry, who did you say you were? Miss Shepard asked. Charles Bowman. My son is in Mrs. Kemp's class, kindergarten. I came and got him about 30 minutes ago. I was sweaty. Something in her voice sounded off, and then she said something that made me feel numb. I'm sorry, sir. I think you must be confused. Wesley Bowman is still here at the school. It took me a moment to register what she was saying. It all felt like a bad dream. Check again, because I'm staring at him in my back seat, I insisted. The principal placed me on hold, and I looked at Wes again. He had stopped bouncing and playing, and seemed to be paying extra attention to the conversation. Hey buddy, you okay? I said with a smile. Something was very wrong. The whole world felt like it was suddenly turned upside down. Sir, are you still there? Ms. Shepard was back. I'm here. The words felt dry in my throat. I didn't feel like I meant anything I said. It was just this overwhelming sense of dread filling my body. I just came from Mrs. Kemp's. Wes is in class, so I would really appreciate it if you stopped this prank and told me exactly why you are calling. I hung up. I was staring at Wes in the back seat as she told me, but it didn't feel like I was looking at my son anymore. What are you? I asked, struggling to find the words to make sense of this nightmare. I didn't even understand how I had gotten an alert on my phone. After all, if the school thought that my Wes was in class, then who would send this? The phone buzzed again, except this time it wasn't an alert. It was instructions. Take child to XXX Sparrow Lane. I knew that place. It was a housing development in the shady part of town. Some even reported that there were drive-by shootings, but I didn't know what else to do except to listen to this mysterious messenger. I got off the highway and made my way there, all the while keeping an eye on the child in the back seat. Instead of playing like he had before, this time he was deathly silent, as if he knew precisely where we were going. As we got closer to the stop, his attitude changed dramatically. Suddenly he started screaming, a blood-curdling cry that told me there was danger here. I slowed down right outside the address, looking toward the desolated building and wondering who could have brought me here. My phone instructed me again, placed shield outside vehicle. At the point, the child that looked identical to my son was thrashing, trying to break loose, screaming and gnashing angrily, trying to cut at himself with his teeth. You can't do this, Dad. You can't. It sounded just like Wes. It made my skin crawl. Calm down.
You stupid
I insisted as I unbuckled and got around to his side. I needed this to be over, to get away from this insanity and get back to my Wes. The child was now hardly even sounding human, with his guttural shrieks and cries, his fingernails digging into my skin as he begged for it to stop. I managed to reach in and loosen his strap, letting him out of the car, and then hopped inside and locked the doors. I was too frightened to see what he might do to me if I stayed outside. He fumbled to the ground, seemingly unable to walk. Then a moment later, he let out a painful cry, and a massive shadow moved from the building. I held my breath and couldn't believe my eyes. It looked like a troll. That's the best way that I can describe this monster. Its body was covered in soot and ash and moss. Gray and black vines twisted about its arms the way veins would as it towered over the child. With its mighty hand, which looked to be at least twice the size of my Impala, it scooped up the child. All the while, the smaller creature screeched and twirled, trying to escape, but it was too late. The monster dragged it back into the shadows, and even after it had disappeared, I could still hear its shrieks. I sat there in stunned shock for the longest time, too numb to move. Then my phone buzzed again. You are free to go. I took Wes to ice cream that day, but I didn't eat a bite. All I could think of was that poor creature and how my fear had allowed it to be taken by a worse evil. I don't know what I experienced today, but I know now the world is full of magic, both good and bad. I'm just happy that I have my son, my real son here. Sometimes he smiles at me, and I see a gleam in his eyes, and then I second guess, what if I made the wrong trade?